I found out why my husband's parents got divorced and can't tell. Him because it includes his dad's secret fetish. My mother-in-law is here for a visit, and while my 32F husband, 32 me, was running an errand, I asked her why she and his dad divorced. They bought a house right before the recession, and I always chalked it up to the stress of that tore them apart, but what she told me was actually insane. This is a long one. She goes, well, it was a lot of things and secrets that were kept from me, including the weird fetishes. I jokingly replied, "Aw, you mean but stuff?" She said, well, that and the women's clothing. She goes on to tell me this story. The night before their wedding, they were getting intimate. She reached down and felt lacy women's underwear. She was shocked and asked WTF was going on because she thought it was a joke. They had been together a while and this had never happened before. He just replied that he thought it might turn her on. And that was it. Flash forward to my husband in grade school, working on a school project. He needed to print stuff and my Mel took out the family laptop. When she opened it, she found pictures of naked women sprawled out on hotel beds. When FIL got home, she questioned him about it, and he said it was just a joke. He had gone to a conference, and his buddies and him did it as a joke. She obviously didn't believe him, but they had just poured their life savings into this house. Not too long after that, she was cleaning their bedroom closest, and when she found a box that she didn't recognize, in that box was pictures of FIL in women's clothing, including some pictures of him in her clothes. She confronted him about it, and he said it would never happen again. Come to find out that my EL and BL stumbled upon him in women's clothing in their backyard one morning and said, "We don't have to tell mommy about this, right?" And they didn't until they were teenagers. Throughout this time period, she would see him at the Kroger out by the dumpsters throwing things away. Additionally, he had a burner phone. She never went dumpster diving, but when she tried to talk to him about it, things would get violent. This escalated to him leaving the house for prolonged time periods, including overnights. She had to tell him multiple times that she didn't care what he did, but he couldn't just walk out of his kids' lives. Her friend and her husband were close with him, and the husband and FIL got together one day so he could talk to him in private. He told him, "I just don't want responsibility anymore." Upset and needing a distraction, my MIL took her and the kids on a trip to California with family. When she got home, all the trash had been taken out, except for a single piece of paper with a schedule on it. A day planned for what she assumed was a date. They had a joint bank account, so she checked it. It was completely empty. He had been using their joint debt card to take women on dates. Once she found this out, she demanded that he give her the debit card and get his own bank account. When he refused, she took the family laptop, and he flipped out. Fearing this, she ran into the neighbor's house with the kids and the phone. Not long after this, they got a divorce. He didn't want hardly any custody of the kids, and she had to convince him to at least do a weekend once a month. He later remarried, and exactly 5 years later got a divorce. A similar cheating situation. She found him sending emails about how he didn't want to go home to his then-wife. Now he's about to marry someone younger than my husband and I's age, meaning I've dated men older than her. FIL has recently become very demanding of my husband in regards to the wedding. A destination wedding that is around a 3-day trip driving. He demands that we go to with our 12-year-old son and pay our own way, too. His current finance has a superiority complex over us, despite being younger than our age. There is a disturbing amount of PDA, and I think she contributes to the aggression that he recently had been showing with my husband. We're at the point where family, including MIL, is calling and texting us about how heartbroken FIL will be if his son isn't at the wedding. Trying to guilt us into it even though my husband doesn't want to go, and we frankly can't afford it as I was just laid off and we have a mortgage. This is his 4th wedding. He insists we stay in the after-party house with our child and strangers, but I can't even trust him. No one is concerned that he might have more kids in his old age. No one is concerned about the trauma my husband was put through, and no one sees the correlation to maybe why he doesn't want to go to the wedding. I'm not sure if his fiancée is aware of the cross-dressing. I don't think it's my place to tell my husband any of this, but I feel like he should maybe know why I don't ever want our son spending the night around him. It's not just the women's clothing, but the secrets that he kept, and the fact that we aren't sure if there is more that he's hiding. AITA for disowning my wife's daughter after she chose her mom's affair partner over me. I 35M met my now soon-to-be ex-wife 33F during uni 12 years ago. She already had kid when she was 19, but the dad left as soon as she started uni. We were dating for 3 months before I met her daughter, Lisa. I remember seeing her family for the first time. I was nervous meeting her parents, but when I saw a little girl beside her mom, I was confused. I asked her if that was her little sister or a cousin of hers, and her answer shocked me. When she told me that that's her daughter, I thought I misheard her or something. At first, I wanted to dump her for hiding something so crucial for me, but she kept on begging for me to stay, and eventually I relented, and soon enough, I started to fall in love with her daughter and wanted to be her father figure. Our bond grew stronger over the years, and in early 2019, before the pandemic hit, we got married. In late 2021, I adopted Lisa, and in early 2022, my wife gave birth to our son, Mark. After my son was born, my wife made the choice to stay at home for the time being, and I was completely fine with that. Everything was going perfectly until a few months ago. I started noticing my wife increasingly spending time with her friends. At the time, I didn't say anything since, in my mind, being at home all day probably meant eating at her, and I didn't want to seem controlling. The thing that made me suspicious was her constant texting and going out of the room for calls. She never did that for anyone besides this one friend of hers. I asked her about it, but she gave me some vague answers about gossip. The moment that took it too far, though, was when I came home last week and saw her outside talking on the phone. This wasn't out of the ordinary. I remember seeing my son on the floor, crying alone. I was pissed at my wife for just leaving him alone in the house, but when I went to pick him up and smelt the horrible stench coming from him, I was beyond furious. His diaper seemed like it hadn't been changed since that morning. I quickly changed his diaper and rushed outside with him in my arms. I was beyond pissed. I snatched her phone from her hand and bolted back inside. I locked my wife outside to have a talk with this friend of hers alone. I had my suspicions about who it really was, and when I heard a male voice calling out her name and asking who was there, I immediately knew what was going on. He ended the call as soon as he heard my voice. I then proceeded to lock the front door to make sure my wife couldn't enter the house at all, and proceeded to screenshot as much of their chat as I could, and then sent them to myself before deleting them on her phone. About 5 minutes later, she was still banging on the glass door leading to the backyard. I reluctantly opened it and was met with a smack in the face. Remember, all of this is happening while I'm holding my toddler in my arms. As soon as she realized what she just did, she apologized profusely, started crying, and tried to hug me. I pushed her away and told her to meet me at the dining table. I told my daughter to quickly take care of the baby so me and her mom could have a quick chat. I just kept it simple. I told her this was her only chance to even have a sliver of chance of getting me back. If she fucked up this talk, it was over on the spot. No lies, nothing. She kept on trying to apologize and to say it wasn't that serious. I reminded her that she not only fucked me over, she could also have easily done serious harm to our son by leaving him alone in the house like that. I then simply asked who, for how long, and did they fuck? She replied with her ex-boss Daniel, 6 months, and she didn't answer the last one, so I kept on reminding her that this was her last chance. She then just simply nodded. I then asked her if they use protection. To this, she started crying and started begging me for forgiveness. She said she would block him then and there, would never contact him again. I could fuck any woman I want from now on, yada yada. I guess Lisa heard the commotion and came downstairs. I told her to go back up, but she just walked to my wife and asked her if I knew about Daniel. Up to this point, I was calm, but upon hearing this, I swear even I started tearing up. I asked Lisa if she knew all along, and she said yes. At this point, I'm full on crying, and I asked her why she didn't tell me. She responded with, because unlike you, Daniel buys me the things I want without having to beg. I then asked her how she could possibly do this to her dad. She responded with, you're not my real dad crap. My wife screamed at her upon hearing what she said. At that point, I couldn't bear any of this anymore. I just grabbed my son and got into the car. Me and my son are currently staying at my parents' house. I've basically been drinking myself to sleep every day. Thanks to the saint of a mother I have, my son is being taken care of right now. I'm beyond hurt. I've canceled my ex-daughter's private school tuitions, all her extracurricular activities, and I've contacted a divorce lawyer. He is going to serve my wife this Friday. My wife and Lisa have been blowing up my phone non-stop with apologies. I simply responded with, get a lawyer and tell that ungrateful thing of yours to start calling Daniel her dad. I'm disowning her, and then I blocked my wife. I didn't respond to Lisa, I just simply blocked her. I guess my wife told our friends what her and Lisa did, and now they have been texting me nonstop. They understand how I feel, but believe I'm going too far by divorcing my wife without hearing her out. They also keep telling me that disowning Lisa is definitely going too far, and she's only a kid and didn't understand what she was doing. I just can't get over the things she told me. I've worked my ass off to give my wife and daughter luxuries. I could have only dreamed off as a kid, and this is how I get paid back. Lisa, 13 years old, is old enough to understand that hiding her mom's affair is bad and definitely purposely used those words to hurt me. But a part of me believes that there is still hope. A few family counseling sessions later, and we can go back to living the life I once considered a fairy tale. I'm beyond destroyed by this whole situation. A part of me just wants to see them burn in hell, but the other part of me believes there is still hope. Am I really going too far? Is there still hope?